It's a beautiful day here in Sedona, Arizona. End of the day, got that late afternoon light gleaming off the rocks. It's quite gorgeous. So I wanted to start off today's satsang by sharing. I'm exhausted. I've noticed just yesterday, especially, and then again today, there's an overwhelm. There's just an exhaustion of so many new moving parts, at least for me, and I think for so many of us, navigating, trying to find different ways of getting our income, different ways of navigating the world that we're used to, because it's not the world we're used to. Just a lot of extra details and parts and mechanics to how we're navigating this life. And as a single person, I'm used to doing everything pretty much myself. But boy, it's like taking care of the house and the dynamics and filing different forms, all my income is dried up. So filing, unemployment for self-employed and figuring out that matrix and that stuff. And I've got renters in San Diego and, working with them and managing that, and just all the different parts that come into play, that have been coming into play, that aren't normally as at play. And then there's the emotional exhaustion, just the sadness and the empathy and the concern and the worry. And it's a gentle worry. It's not a consuming worry, but a worry for a lot of the people who are struggling and are going to struggle even more as this economic shutdown continues, and as more people have friends and acquaintances that they actually know who are either ill or have passed or will pass. And how it's being managed, and concern about our governments and our communities and each other. There's a real overwhelm. And I bring that up because I notice it within myself, and it's just typical that when we're overwhelmed, when we're stressed, when we are more aware of a primal fear, because there's a lot of uncertainty. It's not necessarily a fear of succumbing to fear, but it's just a matter of the fact that there's a lot more uncertainty, and that naturally has an effect of raising concern. Focusing our attentiveness, and that can be draining after a while, to have our attention so hyper focused and attentive, and not feeling like it can really let up a lot. And hopefully you have a practice, and I certainly have a practice of giving that hyper attentive awareness a break, and turning that awareness within to the eternal nature of grace, or turning that awareness to nature, or turning that awareness to the love that we have in our communities and in our families and in our friendships. But there's a lot of overwhelm and a lot of stress and a lot of energy that's being expended in ways that we don't normally expend it. And when any animal, when any system feels stressed, it tends to try to protect itself. It can tend to collapse in and get insular and defensive. Well, I was working with a client earlier today, and we were talking about how when does an animal that is normally not aggressive attack? When it feels threatened. And there's a lot of feeling of threat and uncertainty, instability in the world. So today, let's look at the recognition that is present and can be even more present and more activated. And how to meet that, recognize it, notice it, and remember how to return to grace. How to choose to respond to life and respond to ourselves from grace. And how we might notice when we are being not graceful, when we're reacting from our conditioning, from our separate sense of self that is always going to be a smaller sense of self. It's separate from the one consciousness. It feels separate and vulnerable and threatened. And when we're acting from that separate self in a protective or defensive or what was the word I was feeling today? Derisive way, petty, short, angry. That happens when we're exhausted, when our resources are tapped, when we're feeling stretched thin, or it can happen. So this morning I got to experience where I was collapsing into that separate self-identity, where I was feeling a little bit distant from my grace. And I always try in satsang or in any of these shares to share from my direct experience, from my own journey, from my own navigation of my humanity, meeting my divinity and finding a balance and finding a wholeness of being with that humanity and that divinity both wholly alive. And where it can get slippery and where I can start to feel not as connected to, aligned with, abiding with the divine nature of being. And this morning I was having my coffee and scanning a bit of Facebook, which I'm doing so much less of now. Because I got to tell you, I'm not wired. And I don't think most of us are. I don't think, generally, we've never had this opportunity in life to have access so rapidly. We're scrolling through so rapidly, have access to so many thoughts, opinions, shares, perspectives, and so much of it beautiful, but I've even gotten overwhelmed with, like, I don't know if I can take watching another friend sing a beautiful song or dance. I mean, that's beautiful, but it's too much. It's too much for me. And so, but there I was, and trying to slow down in that, trying to be more present to what I was consuming, taking in. And um, and there was a post that was really harsh, and I think it was meant to be triggering, and it worked. And I started reading through the comments, and it was one of those classics. You've all seen them. One of the classic posts that's triggering in a way that everyone's weighing in and everyone's responding and trying to get their point across and trying to convey their opinion and convince others. And as eloquently and as kindly as possible to let other people know just how wrong they are. And I found that that what was being shared by the original poster was not resonant with the way I'm wired, or what I call my soul configuration. It wasn't resonant with the way that love moves through me, and how the world makes sense through my way of loving. And I found myself vilifying this person, the person who made the post. I found myself in my mind, you know how it goes, a story going, speaking all the ways that she was wrong, all the ways that she was stupid, all the ways that she was ignorant, dangerous, and getting a little bit worked up. And I caught it pretty quickly, but it was there. And I knew that I'd seen some other posts by this person before, and they're often not resonant. And it's not a dear friend. It's not even somebody I've ever met before. And I noticed that I wanted to punish her for posting something that felt threatening to me. And the only best way I could punish her without being a total jerk and jumping on and spouting my opinion and shouting her down was to unfriend her, right? That'll teach her. That'll teach her. She'll see that she's losing friends for being so harsh or stating her opinion, her feelings, her beliefs, her perspective. Whew. And then I read some of the other posts and such, and I found myself doing the classic, oh yeah, yes, your post is right. That's right. You're a good person. Oh, look at this person. That person's an ugly person. That person's a wrong person. So I caught it pretty quickly, but it really didn't feel comfortable. I was exhausted, and I was more susceptible to being ruled by my primitive egoic nature that needed to protect itself, that felt it needed to protect itself. So I stopped, and this is the invitation to learn how we might stop, to notice when a reaction, when a strong opinion, when a judgment is at play, when I'm needing to make somebody else wrong and I'm vilifying them and it's creating a sense of separation and it doesn't feel loving. And when that is happening, to notice it, and notice it anytime something starts to feel like that, anytime something starts to feel like a me against them, and a right and a wrong, and an approving. this separation, not being able to see them, not being able to love them at all in that moment, to notice it and to be able to stop. And if we have cultivated an awareness of our grace, if we have cultivated an abidance, an awareness of true loving consciousness that isn't a concept, it's not a thought, it's not loving thoughts, it's not compassionate thoughts, it's the nature of being. It's actually abiding and allowing and letting the true nature of grace that we are to be the forward essence of being. If we've enlivened that, if we've become familiar with that, if through our practices of self-inquiry and self-realization and meditation have allowed that truth to blossom and to be present, then it's so familiar that perhaps within just a few breaths, we can return to that, what has become a familiar feeling, a familiar feeling. And I stopped and I felt into the unconditional love, the unmoving, imperishable grace of being that rests in peace, no matter what my thoughts are, no matter what my conditioning is, no matter what my triggers and programming is doing. There's a grace of being that is inherent. It is the nature of consciousness. It's what we all are. And to return to that, and then to feel into now what's the action that wants to be taken. And what happens is, then the only real question is, does this, let's say in this regard, this post, this person's way of communicating their perspective, does it feel resonant with love, with the way love moves through me? Does it feel resonant? Does it feel inviting? Does it feel like something that I want to have around me and be present in my life? Or does it not? And in this case, just feeling into it, just the listening in to the grace, it was, no, this really doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good usually when I see the post from this person. And I'm choosing not to have that prevalent in my awareness, in my life. And it was beautiful to be able to make a choice to not to have to shout her down or any of the other comments, to not need to engage, to prove a point, to try to change the world. Like we change the world through Facebook, right? Like we write something that is a differing opinion from somebody else, and they're typically going to go, "Oh yeah, well, all right, yeah, got it. I'm going to change my opinion." And to stop, feel into the grace, and then choose resonance. And in this regard, I very simply unfriended this person. And there was no vitriol, there was no desire to prove a point or to hurt them through the unfriending or to teach a lesson. It was simply because it didn't feel resonant anymore. And I didn't feel good. Didn't feel loving to stay in that, to have those posts, those comments present. So that was the experience, and it's beautiful because it reminded me that we can still take action and set boundaries and say yes to this and no to that without needing to have such a strong opinion about the thing we're saying no to or yes to. Just, does it feel resonant or does it not? I think what we often do is we don't trust our innate grace. We don't trust this innate guidance system to say yes to this and no to that. So here I was saying no to seeing more of this person. And if I didn't trust that, if I didn't really feel into it and trust it, then I would need to justify that choice with a harsh opinion of her. And maybe I'd unfriend and still have a dialogue going on in my mind, justifying to myself, yeah, I was right in doing that, right? Yeah, because she's a bad person. Yeah, because she's like that, and people like that aren't good. And I'd be doing this dialogue to justify just making a simple choice and said, no, this doesn't feel resonant. So the invitation here is to practice in our meditations being the witness, to practice being the unmoving and unperturbed grace of unconditional loving awareness that can navigate this life just beautifully. In fact, the true nature of our being, unconditional loving awareness, navigates life much more authentically than our conditioning does, right? But we have to know that. We have to know that unconditional loving awareness, not as an idea, but as an actual embodiment, as a direct experience. And the only way I know, or at least the way that's most familiar to me and that I offer and share with others, is within the stillness to inquire, what is that which is aware of my passing judgments, the judgments that arise and pass within my mind, the conditioned thoughts that arise and pass within my mind. What is it that is aware of that? What is the nature of me, of you, of all of us? It's like the sky. It's like the sky within which clouds come and go. Storms brew and blow and are turbulent and then pass. But the sky is unperturbed even by the most ferocious of storms. And what is the nature of that awareness? Because that sky nature is awareness itself. It's just consciousness. So to practice knowing that through a felt sensation of feeling into it and feeling that grace, not as a thing other than self, as, oh, I found grace and I'm letting it in. It is the nature of our being. It's just awakening to it. So I want to share a meditation. I want to share a meditation that I've found to be very helpful for myself. I practiced this for a long while, and I still get to practice it on a regular basis because it's one of my favorite meditations to do with students. And anytime anybody guides a meditation, they are in the meditation themselves. There's no way to guide a meditation honestly and truthfully that you're not feeling absolutely throughout every cell of your being. So it's not just words, that you're actually feeling and then speaking what you're feeling and helping others perhaps, hopefully, find or discover or feel some of the same sensations. All right. So in this meditation, there's going to be a moment where I ask for you to imagine that you're in a little cabin. You don't need to see the cabin. You don't need to picture it. For some people, that's easy. You can do that, and it's easy to do, and it's not distracting. For someone like me, it's hugely distracting. If somebody's guiding me through a meditation and they say, imagine you're in a little cabin, and to try to get me to really be present in the cabin, if they say, look around, see the cabin, really see all the details of the cabin, I'm screwed. Because I'm sitting there going, oh, okay, yeah, all right. Okay, there's a couch. All right. It's a blue couch. Great. No, green couch. It's a green couch. All right. And no, it's more of an ottoman. It's plaid. Wait, it's and I'm gone. What we're asking is, what would it feel like to be in a cabin? What would it feel like to be in a sweet, quiet, safe little cabin, a place of peace and solitude? That's what I'll be asking when I say, imagine that you're in a little cabin. All right. So this meditation is best and is really only possible with closed eyes. So go ahead and close your eyes. Bring awareness to your breath, which simply means be aware of the fact that you're breathing. You don't have to have an opinion about your breathing. You don't have to have a story about your breathing. Just witness your breathing. Let it be. Let it breathe. And on the next in-breath, allow your awareness to follow the breath into the body and be present with the body. Just notice that you have a body. Again, you don't have to tell any story about the body. You don't have to have an opinion about it. Just notice the presence of a body. And let that body feel relaxed. Now imagine you're in a little cabin. Somewhere safe, peaceful, quiet, a little place of solitude. Somewhere where you feel at home, you feel comfortable. Where you've got a little time to do this meditation. No one's going to bother you. And imagine that at the far end of the cabin, there's a window, a big rectangular window. It's a big clear pane of glass. And you bring yourself over to this big window and you recognize that it's looking out over some sort of a landscape. And it doesn't really matter the details of the landscape. Let's just say it's just some rolling hills, some trees, some sky. Very simple. But the main thing that you notice is that it's a sunny day. You just notice it's a sunny day. You don't have to have the opinion about a sunny day. You're just noticing, oh, wow, it's a sunny day. Yeah, there it is. Now allow your awareness to move from you standing at the window to you becoming the window. Take up the perspective. Let your consciousness, let your awareness occupy the space of being a big, clear pane of glass that is simply observing a landscape. We kind of take the personal you out of the picture. And it's just now you are just this pane of glass that really doesn't have opinions. It just notices, and it's noticing that it's a sunny day. And then notice that the day starts to get cloudy. You don't have to see the detail of the clouds, just you notice the difference between a sunny day and a cloudy day. And notice as well that even though the weather is changing from sunny to cloudy, that you, the window, you don't change. You remain in this state of equanimity. And what does that feel like? To allow a weather pattern to be changing without your opinion about it changing, because you have no opinion, you're just noticing and feeling. And then notice that the cloudy day turns into a real stormy day. A big thunderstorm starts to brew, and the trees are blowing, and the wind's blowing, and the rain is falling sideways. There's thunder and there's lightning. And notice that even though the weather has gotten quite tumultuous, you, the window, you don't change. And feel that in your body, feel that in your heart, feel that throughout your body, this ability to be present and notice a drastic change in weather. But as the witness, you don't change. You don't budge. You're unperturbed. You notice. And now the day turns to night. Maybe the clouds clear and the stars come out. And you, the window, you don't change. You notice, oh, it's a starry night. That's it. You just notice it's a starry night. And morning comes. Maybe it's a misty morning. Maybe it snowed overnight. Maybe it clouded up again and it snowed overnight and there's a blanket of snow. And you, the window, you notice that. Unperturbed, unchanged. And feel what that feels like. To be one, to be a consciousness, to be an awareness that can notice things change without collapsing into opinions or judgments about the change. And now maybe seasons start to come and go, and winter turns into spring. The snow melts, there's leafing out of green, and you, the window, you just notice. And the spring turns to summer. The heat and the hills turn brown. And the summer turns to fall with the changing colors of the leaves. And all along, you, the window, you don't change. You stay beautifully attentive, noticing. That state of grace and equanimity and peace. And this isn't a place of numbness. This isn't a place of blankness. You feel the difference. It's clear, the difference between the quiet blanket of snow in the winter and the burgeoning, beautiful green of the spring. What a beautiful thing to be able to feel the difference and not collapse into an opinion or an attachment. But you just notice there's a freedom. And in fact, you can take in more. You can allow more because you're not narrowing into opinions. You're just holding this beautiful, open, loving awareness, unconditional loving awareness of whatever is arriving. Whatever is arising and passing, coming and going, changing. And in this time of change, may we notice our own changing emotions, thoughts, habits, conditioning, the shadow states that want to arise and pass. May we meet our own judgments or our own derision or our own fear or defense. May we notice it and maintain this state of grace, not shaming ourselves, not blaming ourselves. Just noticing, oh, wow, there's my stuff. There's my shadow. Oh yeah, there's that anger that gets triggered sometimes when I'm feeling scared and threatened or unheard. There it is. You can open your eyes if you'd like and just look about the world around you. Look about the world around you and just notice it. Notice that there's difficulty in the world. Notice that there's struggle. Notice that there are beautiful angels helping others. Notice that people are opening their hearts. Noticing that some aren't. And can we remain in our grace and simply move toward and support that which feels resonant with our grace? And either move away from or have empathy for or set up a boundary and say, no, I don't want some of this ugliness in my world. Or if you want to engage it, but engage it from your grace and not from the small, separate, egoic self and its judgments and opinions and assessments that are based on our small conditioning. And I invite you to really love yourself through this and notice your rising and falling emotions, your highs, your lows, your challenges, your uncertainties, your exhaustion. Notice when you are collapsing into your egoic identity, and then stop, take a few breaths, or go sit for half an hour and return to your grace. It's always there, always present, imperishable. And then make the choices you need to make and make the decisions you need to make from your wholeness, from your truth, as unconditional loving awareness. I am that. It has nothing to do with the personality. It's just the essence of being, the essence of consciousness itself. Grace or graciousness is not an activity of the mind. It's not an activity of the mind. It's not actually a choice. It's the essence of our being. It's the essence of our truth, our wholeness. The choice is to point your awareness to that, to your beingness. All right. I think today's satsang is going to be just a little bit shorter. That feels good. That feels good. I'm going to jump over to, let me see something here. Okay. So I invite, if you're able, if it feels resonant. I've got a couple of links down in the chat section of the Zoom, and I'll put them on the YouTube feed as well. And if you're so inclined, and if you're able, and only if you're able and inclined, donations are welcome. It's a rough time for all of us. We're trying to make ends meet. Our livelihoods have been severely disrupted. The satsang is free. It's a devotion of love and care. It's consciousness wanting to wake itself up wherever it can and however it can. And we have this beautiful, unprecedented, and precious opportunity now to reshape our world, to reshape the world that is crumbling around us, to bring it back together from our wholeness, rather than from the separate identity, the sense of separation that built the last world that is crumbling. Let's build a new world from the unity consciousness, from an awakened unity consciousness of love and grace. So there's a couple of links that you can utilize if you'd like. Any donation is welcome and appreciated. Thank you. Much love. So much love for all of us who are we're gonna learn a lot if we allow it. Let's learn love. Let's learn truth. Let's learn the wholeness of our being. And if you want any support in that and guidance in that, let me know. I'm happy to share and guide anybody who is truly willing and devoted to awakening into their truth, into their divine nature. All right. Much love. Blessings.